All right, welcome to an attempt to quickly get information out there on some topics that are near and dear to my heart. So today I decided to tackle something really easy, and that is diminished scale or diminished harmony. So on guitar, we get very used to, fairly early on, I think, we learn that our first symmetrical scale, diminished scale typically. And I think everybody kind of learns various things that revolve around the sort of diagonal. Oh, it's not symmetrical then, so I got to start here. And then working around that, and that's okay. That's your diminished scale. That's your. In that case, I was playing the half whole diminished, and that's kind of what I'm going to concentrate on because of the way we can manipulate it and change our mindset a little bit to get different results. So, if you, like me, went to play that and went and kind of went, well, it's really symmetrical on the bass strings, and then I got to make that shift. Okay, well, I'll be here. I found it very hard to improvise with that, or to make it not sound like I was playing a scale and just sort of shoehorning that scale into situations. So I just avoided playing it for a long time. I would, do something else. There'd be some other scale or some other thing to do other than that. But it's not something that we can just let go and never do again. So I re-examined it some other time, and then went, okay, what can I do with it? So you see this scale, and the average one is symmetrical, and you can, like on no other scale that you learn really, unless you really get into it, being able to go this way, that way. And that's where the temptation is, but that's also where the wrinkle is. So I decided to isolate one section of the fretboard like we do for every other scale. Every other scale utilizes this kind of movement and not this kind of movement. And maybe that's the problem that some of us face with, being free and flowing with the scale and having it actually sound good. So you can check my work, go ahead, but when you look at all the notes that say in a diminished scale, half whole diminished scale, and we like A for some reason because it's right in the middle. You can do it in G, but I'm going to do it in A, mostly because this guitar, which you can ask questions in the comments if you want, the A is right at my eyes, as opposed to G might be on another guitar. So I'm just going to do an A. So you can check my work, but I'm just going to play my little segment that's a positional segment for the half whole diminished. And I'm just going to call them diminished because later on we can talk about how just learning the one scale and just changing your mindset a little bit. So I play this now. I don't move up here, I just go. I can go up there. So I'm just going to show it to you. I'm going to do it slow. There's not going to be any tab or anything for this thing. You're just going to look at it. You can stop it and slow it down. But I'm going A, B flat. I also chose a guitar that had fret markers on it. If you look behind me here, I do have some, but I have some that have, those two have fret markers. And that's it, kids. And this one does too. So I don't have a lot of guitars with fret markers, so I picked this one. Plus, it's kind of a cool guitar, and it gets your attention. All right, so I'm playing the A, the B flat, the C natural, right? Got yourself, depending on how you want to look at that, I'm going to call that an E flat, E natural, but you can call it a D sharp. And then I have this little baby here, the G, the A sharp, or I think of it as a B flat. We'll talk about that. The C, C sharp, D sharp, or E flat, E natural, F sharp, and I'm calling all these different enharmonic names. All right, so that's the shape. And those are the buttons that I'm pushing for that one shape. Do-do. It's the first thing in the morning, so I haven't really played. What? It's early. Anyways, so that's the shape to work with. Now, how do we make that work? Well, if I play it against a diminished chord, I'm going to play like an A diminished just to make it super simple or straightforward. It sounds okay. Now, a lot of musicians a lot of jazz musicians like the major 7 sound on our diminished. I'm not going to go up to that C sharp, but somewhere in there was a C sharp, which is the major third against that. And that might be not the sound you're looking at. So a lot of people will play the half hold diminished, but start, so I'm calling this A. I would start here, and I get that sound. So I don't even have a looper pedal here to kind of loop something for you, but maybe the next video. And then, so I'm going to start, I'm calling it A, but I'm going to start here. To get that sound. So you're getting the major 7. And if you reach up here, you're getting the minor third, and you don't have that clash of the major third against the diminished chord. But if you're playing fast enough, you're blinding them with science, nobody can hear the difference. Okay, so that's one application. If I was playing now against an A7 chord, and nothing fancy in the A7 chord, then I would start on the root. So against an A7 chord, I'm just going to highlight the top strings. You get the root, the flat 9, sharp 9. If you decide to borrow from another position here, you get the C sharp. The 7th, the 6, always a cool note, the 5, the flat 5, which is kind of bluesy, the major third, the minor third, and in any... That's kind of built into that thing, so it actually has a decent pedigree. So going... Oops. And it gives you that sound. It's a very hip sound that way. Okay. Maybe not in my hands this morning, and you might not be watching this morning, so the fact that it's before I do anything. Okay. So those are two great ways of doing it. So again, against an A diminished chord, and this is the part of guitar playing that, and music in general, I will say I struggle with when somebody says, "Oh, it's an A diminished scale, so play the G sharp, half whole diminished scale against that." I really had a hard time with that because it just seems like translation, like a translation matrix of some sort. But if you just sort of see that note there in that scale. But the main advantage of having a position to play it is that I found for me, I was able to improvise and goof off with it a lot more than I could when it was this giant monster that never seemed to end until you ran out of guitar. All right, so now a bonus thing for all you guys who really love your two note per string type scales is it's not a true pentatonic, but I call pentatonicizing it. And that's where we just take out anything in between. So now our scale's like this. I'll play that. Sounds good against the A7. It sounds good in general, I think. But you can be the people who don't like it, I'm sure you'll be in the comments telling me how wrong I am. But anyways. Right, so that's available to you. And if I play the diminished scale, it's kind of hard to hear one against the other, but... So you have that for, if you really just, reel out the... But with that, you have the root, the flat 3, the flat 5, 5, 7, sharp 9, I'm sorry, flat 9, minor third, flat 5, right, and we have that going for us. Hope that's clear as mud.